everyone. This is Catching Up with the Nerds with your hosts, Tom and JC. This is a podcast about two dads that are catching up with all the nerdy stuff we miss, sharing how we pass on our nerdy passions to our kids, and deep diving into nerd pop culture to make it more accessible for you, listener. Welcome back. It's been a while.
Welcome back. Yeah, I'm Tom and you're JC. This is amazing. Now you know.
Yes, I'm JC and you're Tom. Yes.
Yay. Nice new intro. Yes, we're back. We've been gone for a while. We've missed the last 4 episodes, so an entire month of podcasting. Because life happened.
Life, man, life. So, what part of life has affected you, Tom, this month?
Well, the same that's been affecting you, which is new jobs. I no longer work for a big corporation, and I've been moved on to a slightly smaller one. And if you must know, I used to work for Sony TV channels, and they've sold their TV channel business in the UK to a small company, and now we're like one of those startup company, with 50 plus employees in a cool, nice area of London.
Which means beanbags everywhere.
Yes, beanbags everywhere. And so that was it. There's just the whole transition that happened. That the last couple of weeks that anyone's job is always very busy because of handing over stuff and explaining what you do to other people. And then getting into a new company is also very interesting and intense because you need to understand new concepts and who does what when. So that's the same thing that you, I guess, went through with your,
Yeah, well, I went from leaving my previous job was as a stay-at-home dad into actually working again, which is
working at home dad.
Yeah, working at home dad, which has been really nice, actually. I got to admit, as much as I love the kiddos, I was ready for my usual dose of adult conversations. Was this podcast? That's sad. So I pretty much enjoy having adult conversations again. So
I was your escape. I was your escape, and now
pretty much. And now it's like I get to have professional level conversations with people. I'm like, wow.
It's fine. We're quite open-minded. We are okay with seeing other people, so it's fine.
Yes,
you can go and talk to other grown-ups.
Yes, thank you. And it's been a nice change. But as always, it's busy and you have to adjust to life because all of a sudden it's like doing that and doing the kids and school and blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. So just that adjustment has been a little bit rough. I'm not going to lie. But we're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there. So we're good.
Right. So that brings us into this week's episode. And I thought we'll go back and ease everybody in nice and gently. And we'll do some recommendations, AKA what we've been watching, listening, reading in the last couple of weeks, and what who do you want? Do you want to start, JC? Do you want to talk about the first thing you've enjoyed?
I'll caveat, which in this case I have leaned into all animated shows or movies, or actually all animated shows, because as I just to give you a little background, it's like why I did that. A few years ago, I gave myself total license to only read graphic novels and comics. I was like, screw it. I had always guilted myself, shamed myself into like, there's these great pieces of like literature you should read. Like, like War and Peace type stuff, like important literature. Right? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I grew up in a society where like comic books weren't available, but even if they were, like they wouldn't have been condoned in any way. Like, and that
Footloose,
Yeah.
Listen to any music and dance.
Exactly. It just it's beyond the conservative side, but just like it would have been looked at like, dude, what
are you doing?
Yeah, it would have totally leaned into like the classic nerd stereotype. And then because I keep telling people, it's like, had it been there, I would have picked it up and read it. And a couple years, you know what? I'm going to catch up on like the 20 years I missed out on that stuff, man. So all I do is read like one graphic novel after another.
There's an underlying piece of advice right there for kids who are listening. It's like, do what you want. Don't listen to everyone. It's like when it comes to nerdy stuff, do what you want. If you want to read a comic, if you want to pick up a book, if you want to pick up a game in a store or watch a movie, just do it. Don't wait.
Yeah. And I enjoy kind of like my super like intense shows like stuff like The Wire, The Sopranos, like these things, like they're amazing, they're great. But lately I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just catch up on all the animated shows I missed because I did miss a bunch. Like when really the adult animated show thing exploded, I tuned out for some reason, like off the back of like really Family Guy was one of the first huge ones that it was like, oh wait, that's not for kids, right? And not that I'm initially a fan of that show and I haven't watched it, but it led to all these other shows that I missed, and I'm just catching up on those, and that's what I talk about. There's a few of those that have come out that I think are really cool.
All right, you go first. What's your first recommendation / things you've enjoyed? What's the first show?
All right,
I watched it too.
There's once again, as always, there's a theme to my first. It's a set of recommendations, and these are shows that I feel are very plot driven. And I'll make a clear distinction because there's another set of shows that I think are very character driven that I've really enjoyed. And the plot driven shows, funny enough, I've caught myself somewhat enjoying, somewhat not enjoying. And start off with Invincible. I've been talking Tom's ear off about Invincible over text, like to the point that I think I'm probably annoying him by this point, because it was such an anticipated show. For anybody who hasn't watched it, the reasons why you should be interested in Invincible is one, is based on a huge comic run by Robert Kirkman. For anybody who doesn't know who Robert Kirkman is the guy that wrote and basically created the show, The Walking Dead. And as we know, that show is huge. And the reason why that is so big is that Robert Kirkman is one of the few comic writers that is a legit, I think he's almost a billionaire. Like, he is legit rich. And it's very rare to hear that. Because most of the time, these guys, like, they will write a comic and it's owned by the publisher. So in this case, like, I think it's Image, not Image, is it Image? I forget. But for example, like, someone writes something for Marvel. Yeah. Marvel makes a movie out of that. The guy that actually wrote that character gets very little money from it because Marvel owns all those characters, right? Yeah, in the case of Robert Kirkman, he owns all his characters. So the 10,000 seasons of Walking Dead, he makes money on all of those hand over foot, like, without a doubt. So the thing about it is, like, when he started writing The Walking Dead, he also had a parallel run called Invincible. And it's taken a while for them to develop this one. And finally decided that the best way to develop it was through an animated show, but stacked to the gills with like the best voice actors you've ever heard. Like, it's got J.K. Simmons. It's got like, it's got John Hamm
for 5 minutes.
It's got Sandra Oh, and she like brings it, man, in the show. So it's super well cast, which was amazing. That in itself got me interested because I'd never heard of it. I'd never read the novel. I'd never even heard it existed. So I was like, let's check this out. And you check out the animation, and the animation looks great. It's super good, but it also looks like it's straight out of Saturday morning cartoons. It looks like a more evolved version of that. Yeah. Like, what if they actually made that animation really, really good? And so it looks like it's like, oh yeah, it's like a family show. It's like, oh, you can watch it with your kids. No, and no. It's like, if you're not down for like extreme violence, then this, or allow your kid to watch extreme violence, this is not the show for them at all.
Yeah. It took me by surprise because I wasn't ready for that. I knew it would, I thought it would be violent in terms of the themes and the language. I thought that would be the violence within it. I wasn't expecting so much guts and broken body parts,
squished like grapes.
Yes,
it's like, that was intense.
I mean, for you've watched every single episode, right? You've done the entire season, right? Yeah. The only thing I can refer to and the thing that I wasn't really expecting is that scene in the last episode, that fight between two characters. I'm not going to spoil. With the train. And if you've watched it, you know what I'm talking about.
It's because it's not only violent, but it's upsetting because of what it stands for. Like it lands that moment very well in the show because it generally upsets you.
I had to pause it. I went not because of the visceral. Yeah. Like I had to stop and I was like, what just happened? Like, oh my, like I can't believe I can't believe they came up with that idea. I can't believe they went there. Yeah. And it's I had to pause it for like a minute or two just to compose myself and go like, okay, this happened. Let's see where they go with it because I don't know where they can take this like after this scene. And it wasn't I wasn't expecting that, like that level of violence, physical violence.
It was viscerally jarring in a way that animation has seldom made me feel. If I'm honest, it really was that much. It's like there's some anime that I think could get up there, but it really was a combination of just like the violence and what that moment stood for. Once again, it's hard to talk about it without spoiling it for people.
Yes.
But when those two came together, it's like, whoa, that was over the top. Whereas there's other moments in the show that are more like Red Wedding-esque, where it's like it's the shock of what happened and who just got killed and stuff like that shocks you, but really it's more of like shock value, right? It's like, yeah, they're playing with our emotions for it, but that other moment at the end of the show is like it's different. It's not the Red Wedding at all.
Was it the same for you? Have you watched the movie Akira?
Yeah,
the actual movie, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that in terms of the animation of the characters, the way they move, the way it's drawn.
Yeah.
And the head, is it the head of the FBI, the guy Cecil or something like that? Is he the head of I can't remember special head of
yeah, I forget, but it's another shield like entity. Yeah,
and the way he's drawn reminded me of Akira as well, like in the terms of like there's a character and then it looks like it, and so that's why at times I felt like I was watching it again. And as a kid, when I watched Akira for the first time, I was like, it literally messed me up for like a couple of months, because I was like, oh my god, the things I've seen in there. And it's sort of like, in terms of the drawing and the style, the artistic style, it was very reminiscent of Akira there. That's what I've sort of it's a mix of Marvel with Shield, good evil.
Because he plays like a Nick Fury type of character. Because it's like he's
controlling everything.
A good guy, control everything, but morally ambiguous for the greater good, right? So it's very reminiscent,
And the fight scenes are very, to me, reminiscent of Dragon Ball, like when they start flying around and punching each other through mountains. I'm like, this Dragon Ball right there. Somebody lands from space into planet Earth and like just stands up and go for some more. And it's like, okay, this is very Goku right there.
And it does the thing that, once again, we've talked about in previous episodes about the criticism of Marvel movies and Marvel shows sometimes of not showing the everyday person's point of view of what just happened, that got lost after like about Age of Ultron, really. You don't get that like pedestrian perspective on it. And this does that well, I feel. Like you see the implications of the people on the ground of what's happening to them and the destruction that happens as like two super beings are fighting. The implications of that, right? And it's like it shows you very clearly. It shows you like, all right, we just like wiped out a bunch of aliens. Who's going to clean it up? It's like little things like that I thought were really good and like thoughtful. I was like, oh, that's cool. But the big thing that to me is good, solid world building, which is my next point. Like I think this show, because it's very plot driven, I feel sometimes it does a great job of world building, because I'm pretty sure there's like 100+ issues of this. It's like it's pretty well built out in the comics, and I've been purposely I thought about picking it up, and I'm like, no, I feel I want to roll with the show because I think it'll spoil too much for me, and I actually am enjoying the animation quite a bit on it. But it delivers kind of like in that Game of Thrones sort of way. I feel like that's my best comparison to the show. Like I feel like, oh, okay, we're going to be introduced to a lot of people. I feel like there's going to be big stakes. It's like large stakes, and at the same time, like the characters, while I'm invested in them through their plot and less through them. Like even the main character, like the kid, I'm not that invested in him, if I'm honest. Like I'm not that outside of that last episode, spoiler, that's as much as I'll give away. That one did maybe get a little more connected to him, but overall, it's like it's the buildup of characters is a lot slower. Like in the first 2 episodes, just like, I kind of care about them, but not that much. I care about what's happening, but not about the characters yet. And there's a moment for Sandra Oh as well, like the mom character, that also comes at the end that makes you go, oh, you just sympathize for her so much with one line. One line totally repositions that character incredibly well.
She's my favorite character in the entire thing.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
like it. Actually, you said, yeah, you care for them. Like, I don't actually care for the two guys. Like, I actually care for her and what she goes
Correct.
through. It's I believe one of the first time they actually have that connection with the mom sort of character within a series. And it was interesting to go through that. Sort of understanding of what was like, how everything's messed up around it. I don't want to spoil.
Yep.
I feel like
Yeah,
if I say more,
yeah.
Anything else
So
you want to add to Invincible?
no, just it's one of those like I really like the little white what Little White Lies does. I don't know if anybody follows. It's a publication. Displays like a film review a magazine that has a really good website, and they have a really good way of like reviewing things of just like the anticipation for the thing, and they give that a score. Then the actual experience of watching the thing, and they give that a score, and then they give it a different score for reflecting about it after you've watched it. And I'll say this is like my anticipation was super high when I watched it. I really enjoyed it. And I think it possibly exceeded my anticipation of it. But afterwards, I kept asking myself, I was like, did I like it because of the shock? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you take away the shock value from that show, is it still a good show? And I'm still not sure. Like, even talking about it with you right now. Yeah, even talking about it with you, I'm kind of going like, I still get excited when I talk about it, but I fear that once again, it's too plot driven, but I'm hoping the second season establishes the characters more because I want to be more invested in them.
I feel like I've only very lightly connected with the main characters, and it's I think to me the two reasons why I liked it is the violence, fair enough, even though if it's absolutely gross, but that's the one thing that stuck to me, and the music. Okay, the voice actors are absolutely, but the music sort of sticked out to me. Like I thought it was great pick sort of around. It was like, and many times I had to pause it to actually go and look up who the song was about. I mean, obviously, if you put the subtitles on, you can see the artist. But other thing, obviously you're watching it on Prime, but if you're watching and you do you know that you've got the if you're watching it on a tablet or something like that. If you tap your screen once, you see the name of the actors and their bios of that, and there's also the trivia bits. Have you read the trivia bits in there?
No,
I haven't. Funny. Some of them are just funny. It's like, oh, the costume that guy is wearing is actually fake. And you're like, well, yeah, I know it's a freaking cartoon. But like, they keep dropping a bunch of funny trivia bits in there, and it's actually quite. I don't know if they're trolling us or if they just actually just like let's put a bunch of jokes in there.
Or it sounds like Amazon might have just leaned into their AI and just go like, how how like now there's a bunch of articles that are written by AI. So maybe that was it. But speaking of music, that's a great pivot into Yasuke, which is the other show I watched. Anticipation so high.
Yes, go on.
So high for three reasons, really. One, Lakeith Stanfield. Anything he does, I'm there for. Even he had a very crappy adaptation of what is it, Death Note on Netflix that we talked about. That I'm like, I enjoyed watching him. He's the only thing I kind of enjoyed from that whole movie because I think he's just such a talented actor. So he's voicing the lead character in a show called Yasuke, which dropped on Netflix. It's anime. Ish, because it's like American anime, so I believe it was not done in Japan, and it's got a soundtrack by Flying Lotus. So he both scores it. So Flying Lotus, for anybody who's not familiar out there, go check out Flying Lotus. It's hard to even pinpoint what genre he plays it because he's just everywhere, but he's amazing. He's one of my favorite, like kind of like right now, like I don't even want to call him because it's like kind of producer sort of thing. But the point being is I was super excited about that. Plus it's got an original song for the show with Thundercat, who's another one of my kind of like favorite.
Yes, Thundercat's awesome.
Just kind of like he's just such an amazing musician. And it's like we talked about it in the previous episodes, which like we wanted to see more shows that were Black created, like the actual showrunner was Black, that would like Black writers, and so forth. And we wanted to see more of that in the animated space. And I got through 2 episodes and I couldn't go any further. Like it just sucked. There was no world building. I did not care about the characters. Like, you can barely tell it's Lakeith Stanfield that's voicing the main character. I could not care less about what was happening in the show. I was, if anything, I was just looking out for like the needle drops. I'm like, oh wait, there's a song and stuff. I was like, oh wait, that's kind of cool. And it's like, and I was trying to will myself to like it, and I'm like, dude, life's too short. I'm out. And it was such a bummer.
Your recommendation is not recommended.
Yeah, no. But here's the one thing about it that is absolutely fascinating to me: Rotten Tomatoes. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has got a 92% critic score. It has got a 54% audience score.
Classic, yeah.
I was like, how does that happen in a show like this? Like, I would get that if it was like an indie movie, right? Where it's like, oh, look, it's an indie darling. The critics love it, but really it's kind of boring to watch. And I'm like, on an animated show, I don't think I've ever seen that in an animated show.
I've seen it on movies, a lot. But
but in a show, it's surprised because I'm like, this should play to the fans. It's like everybody should be like gushing over the art and stuff like, and the art isn't bad, but I don't think it's great by any stretch of the imagination. And so it's like, it's interesting. I was like, well, if the critics like it, there must be something good there. And I'm like, oh no, there must be some meta commentary that I'm not picking up on, that I'm like, and shout out David Sago. He got through a whole thing. He's like, look, it gets a bit better, but it really was a bit of a disappointment. I'm like,
and it's funny.
If Sago wasn't in, I'm out.
As we were talking about Rotten Tomato, I went into Metacritic to see what they're talking about. Their score, 72%, and then user score, which is obviously people like us, 5.9.
5.9?
Yeah, out of 10.
Okay. I was about to say that about 100. Okay, so that. Yeah, that tracks with the 54% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Just about the 50%, which is, I mean, it's not, once again, it's perfectly watchable, but I'm like, it's such a waste of talent is the way that I saw it. It's like, because just the story's not good at the end of the day. Like, it didn't capture me early enough.
The one word that seems to be coming back that's in common with every single review, it's overstuffed. Too much. It's over the top. Okay. Yep. It's a bit disappointing. So I actually had it on my watch list, and I was looking forward to actually watch it and see what it was all about. I might still try and get through a couple episodes to see if I maybe like it. But have you tried rewatching it again, or not? Not really. Just give it one watch and you went there.
Because of all the recommendations I'm about to give later, I haven't watched it because all the recommendations I've loved so much. So
cut your losses and you went that. That's it.
But let's pivot to your recommendation.
All right. I'm moving away from your animated content. I'm gonna go with what I like best, which is video games. And a few weeks ago, new game came out on PlayStation 5, exclusive to PlayStation and PlayStation 5 in particular. Returnal, which was a highly awaited game. Again, I'm gonna go with my classic question: what is Returnal?
Yeah,
Tom.
But inquiry minds do want to know.
All right, cool. So it's just, again, it's a third-person shooter. But what is interesting with this is that the settings and the way it's done is highly different from anything else. So the company that produced the game usually does shoot 'em ups, or the ones with you're flying a little plane or a UFO or whatever, and you go through the screens and you've got enemies either dropping from the top to bottom and you're trying to smash them, or you go from left to right and you're trying to go through a bunch. So they've sort of taken the idea, it's the same sort of principles of like you're shooting stuff on the screen and you're trying to move, you have to be in constant movement, but it's third person, so you're controlling a human, and you've got to go through a bunch of aliens, bunch of monsters. So it's also, I'm going to drop a word that I wasn't really familiar with, or I heard it being dropped a bunch of but so it's a roguelike game. So what's a roguelike? A roguelike is literally, it's a term that was more used in terms of tabletop games, tabletop role-playing games, like Dungeons and Dragons. So you go through a bunch of different rooms and different castles or what have you, and you go through there and you have to fight your way through your enemies and get from A to B. And if you die, it's the end of your character. Start all over again.
Yeah.
So a roguelike game is literally you die. You don't start from the point in which you die. You go back all the way to the start.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So they've used the idea of a roguelike game into the story, which is this scientist or this astronaut set in the future, obviously, who is going into a bunch of different planets, and she's like this, like the first person that would go into a planet to sort of scout the place, and her name is Celine. And you see the game starts from this point of you see Celine in her the spacecraft, whatever you want to call it, crashing onto a planet, and then she dies. But that's where the story starts. Like she dies, she wakes up, and she on this planet that obviously she doesn't know anything. And then she goes into a bunch of different rooms. She's got a gun. She sees a bunch of monsters and it's like, oh, what's going on? So obviously she's got to clear the rooms and she got to go through. And then she comes across these dead bodies, and those dead bodies are spoilers. It's herself. So she started going, oh, what the hell? So that's my body there that looks completely decayed from 10 years ago. So she's basically stuck in a time loop where every time she dies, she goes at the start, which is her crashing onto that planet. And the planet, I think, is called Atropos. She dies, gets resurrected onto that plane crash. She's there, she crashes, and then she gets out of the ship and she starts all over again. You lose everything you own, like all the weapons you've unlocked. Everything you've unlocked is gone. You start with that basic weapon and you go again. You keep a bunch of stuff that you have unlocked, like they will not go away. Like once it's unlocked, it stays with you. So you do progress, you become better and better. What else is on now? So you discover that I'm not going to spoil, but you discover why you're here, how come you're stuck in time loop, what's happening every time you die. So you get a lot of answers. You do get an ending for it. I know what the ending is, but I'm not going to say it, obviously. And it was very interesting. So the one thing that is very interesting with this, it's a highly difficult game. It's super difficult, not as in the enemies are unbeatable, but there's a long, massive learning curve in terms of what you need to do, when you need to do those certain actions, and how you need to sort of gather new skills once you play. And it's hard because like the bosses are extremely hard. The seconds, like the smaller bosses, are also very hard to defeat, and you'll die over and over and over again. So it gets frustrating. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a few instances where I almost struck my controller at the TV. It's not happening, because you will grind in the game. You get to a point where, okay, I'm gonna go. I know this boss is coming up. I'm gonna go and do every single room, trying to unlock as many good weapons as I can. Trying to upgrade so my life. Now I get a longer life. Like you get some sort of shield, and you sort of build yourself up to being this badass astronaut, and you can get to the boss and hopefully beat it. But like, sometimes you go on a run, you do absolutely terrible and you defeat the boss, and then sometimes you get actually prepared like very well. You get everything you want. You're like, okay, I'm good to go on level whatever. Let's go, and you get your ass kicked in less than 30 seconds. You lose everything. This is frustrating. But what I found super interesting is that it sort of reopened the debate around what's a hard video game, and hard video games have become super easy recently. And what video game has become now, where before you used to be you had to grind to get to the certain level. Now you can sort of buy your way into greatness. You can get your credit card out and buy a bunch of boxes and loot boxes, and like, no, I'm level 55 and I can, you've not actually played the game that much. You just paid your way to that level. And this one, you have to put the hours, and you have to better yourself, and you have to find the rhythm, find ways of defeating your enemies, and find ways to understand the mechanics of the games. And it's very super interesting. And the whole debate, like I spent hours online as well, just trying to see what people were saying. Like, is this game like, are kids saying this game is too hard and they're giving up, or like, are they persevering and trying to get better? My take on it is that there's no saving. Like, you can't save the game. So it's like when you die and you have to stop, if you want to go to bed, for example, it's either you leave your PS5 on sleep mode, come back to it, and then you'll have all the things you've unlocked still there.
Oh, wow.
If you switch it off, you lose everything. You start from zero.
Dang, dude, that's next level. That's like some. Is this the Contra of this generation?
It's yes, it is.
You know how Contra was so effing frustrating.
So hard and frustrating.
Oh, so like if they hadn't come out with that cheat code, I would have never beat that game.
So there were a lot of people that actually took to Twitter and complained to the game producer. Then they went, "Oh, look, you guys have to put some save points. That's like, not you don't have to put like every 10 minutes, but like at least like halfway through or like a third of the way through, and then another one later on." Which I was like, yeah, they should. But then also I'm like, nah, because that's what does that's what makes this game special. It's like you actually need to concentrate. You need to care. You need to think about how you're going to approach the multiple rooms and the bosses. It's quite funny. Say hi to
so
and I think that's what makes it unique as well. Is it does makes you care. Like it's not a game that you can just pick up and go, okay, I'm gonna play and chill for an hour. Just like remember we used to talk about Call of Duty and Fortnite. Like you can drop in and out of the session quickly. You can do that in Returnal, but that won't get you anywhere. It's pointless.
Yeah.
This is the opposite. This is the opposite of that. It's hard. It's super hard, but it's rewarding. Like when I beat the first boss after failing like 6 or 7 times, I actually legit celebrated when I beat the first boss. You should have seen me. I was like, I was like, this is just boss 1 out of 6. Fine. You suck.
Then you like jump up and go like, today we cancel the apocalypse. Sorry, I just watched Pacific Rim.
Yeah, no, and it felt like that. It felt like I beat the game, but it wasn't like that. It's like there's 6. So there are 6 worlds in the entire thing. And I'm on world 3 or 4 now. Or 3,
all right.
But it will give you you will have to work for it to get past those levels. I think one of my good friends has also playing at the same time, so he started like a couple of days after me, and I was well ahead of him. And he beat a couple of bosses I was struggling to beat like on the first go, but every single play is unique. I can play it that way, and I could literally end the game, like go through all the 6 worlds in one sitting, and then next day you'll try again. You'll die within 5 minutes. So
interesting.
It feels like it feels like there's a part of luck also, because sometimes you can unlock certain weapons that you like, that you feel more comfortable with. Sometimes you get against enemy that are just impossible to beat. Sometimes on other runs you'll literally come across almost no one. So so that when you die and you come back, that's something I forgot to mention, is that the map is different, the rooms are different, the enemies are different. So everything around you is new. So you don't go through the same map twice. You'll go through the rooms that look familiar, but they won't be the same. Like there'll be something different. The enemies will be in different positions. The enemy will be different the next round. One room that you expect coming after after one room won't be the same. So it's mind-boggling. It's one of those games that it gives you a lot of it asks for your attention. You need to give it full attention.
So it's playing with the time loop formula in a way that you could never do in a movie, because the time loop formula in a movie only works because it's the same setting. You shoot it always the same way, and that's what grounds it in like, oh my God, this person's just going through the same thing over and over again. Whereas here, you can actually play with a different setting every time you reset the time loop, even though you're still in a time loop, right?
But you remember that Tom Cruise movie with when he's stuck in a time loop? Have you watched that?
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Edge of Tomorrow. That's exactly what I thought of. Where he keeps just trying to like find different ways to kind of like basically beat it, but it's ultimately the same challenge. He just takes different approaches to it. But what you're saying is like, it's almost like he woke up in a different world every time, right? And that would make it exponentially harder.
Yes, so
because you can't rely on what you learned.
Edge of Tomorrow is literally him learning about everyone's movements. So he can go and say, well, suddenly he'll go into the battlefield and go like bang, 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 bang. Like this guy's behind me. I don't know, like in 2 seconds, this guy's showing up. and that what makes it funny, and then the more he progresses, the more he learns about what he should do and shouldn't do. But so this is quite the opposite, which is like, well, now I don't know what to expect next run. You might start really bad and end very well. You might start awesomely and die like a piece of shit, with no warning.
Yeah,
and that's what I think. I think the difficulty is as it should be. It's a very challenging game, and this is why I love it.
So do you literally have it on sleep mode right now?
It is on sleep mode right now because I had a good one last night. Yeah, it's great. Oh, there was something else I was about to mention. It just slipped my mind, but it's so it sort of deals also with like a psychological horror genre, but it's not horror as in you'll have jump scares. It's not that sort of thing. And the ending, without spoiling it, is completely not what you would expect, and that's great.
Okay,
it's cool, but it also doesn't give you all the answers. I've seen one of my good friends from a job was doing a bunch of live stream on Twitch, and I watched him finishing the game, and I was like, oh, is this it? It's like, okay. He was like, is this finished? Am I done? So the ending again depends on what you expect and what you're how demanding you are. I thought it was pretty good, but it doesn't answer everything. So I'll stop here.
Oh, sometimes those are the best ones.
Do you want to carry on? Shall I go with my second one? What do you want to do?
Do I go back and forth?
Yeah, go on. You go.
All right. So coming on to my second topic, looking at character-driven animated shows,
Yes.
which actually might be a good segue into your next recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shall we carry on? No interruption. Let's do this. All right, cool. People, we are dads. We will get interrupted.
We're dads. We're getting interrupted. Yeah, that's what's
that's par for the course. So character-driven shows. These two shows, I cannot tell you how much I love, because my expectation was very low for both of them, if we kind of follow that structure I was talking about. So one is a Harley Quinn show. That used to be on the DC app and now is on HBO Max. I'm assuming in the UK, is it on Sky?
It might be on Now TV or Sky, one of the two.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. That's the one you kept going on about on WhatsApp.
My God, yeah. I think that was the one I got annoying about, because the thing is, it was just such a surprise. I only picked it up because somebody in a podcast kept talking about it, as you know, and I kept going like, no, it's really a good take on Harley Quinn and like just a DC universe. And I was like, but it's probably like, I kept thinking like Saturday morning cartoon stuff. And I picked it up, and one, it is definitely not Saturday morning cartoon stuff for damn sure. But it tells a really good story that grounds the characters very early on. So the main thing is you're effectively rooting for Harley Quinn from like the second episode. And even though it's got a tight format, it's like, I think the episodes are like 30 minutes long at most.
Which is good.
Which is nice, exactly. And within that moment, like it immediately gets you to like connect with them, understand their motivations, understand what they want to do. And in this case, it's like Harley Quinn is the underdog, right? She's the underdog villain. It's not about like her becoming a good guy, like, oh, I'm going to go fight with Batman and stuff like that. It's like Batman barely shows up actually. And when he does, he is like the punchline of every joke pretty much. Which I love that. That was so good because they totally don't take Batman seriously in that show at all. But the point being is that Harley basically wants to become like the villain. She wants to join the Legion of Doom, and the Legion of Doom is like totally like gatekeepers. Like they don't like anybody join. You have to like meet certain standards. You have to have done like certain amount of crimes at this level. You have to have a crew, all these things. And like, if not, like, and you have to like apply for membership. Like you get like when you join, like you get a badge, and like and there's like a tour, like this is where the espresso machine is and stuff like that. It's super funny. Like it feels like she's joining a corporation. But at the same time, it's about her. She gets help by Poison Ivy. And it's about them supporting each other as women. And this show passes like like what is it, I don't know how to pronounce it ever, if it's the Bechdel test or the Bechdel test, but it's basically that infamous test that someone devised that in the 90s, which I think is super clever, which is like, in any given show or movie, are two women talking to each other about something that doesn't relate to a man, right? It's like, it's surprising how many shows and movies can't even like meet that what I've considered to be an extremely low bar for storytelling. And this one passes it like easily. Like, they have such a great relationship, and it's about them and about their desires and their needs as humans and individuals, that you really get invested in both of their relationship, but also what they both want from life. It gets really interesting. And then it because then it sets up all the other villains as people that are almost like laughable, like one-dimensional, which is usually how the women are portrayed, right? So that's how that flipped the script. I thought was really, really nice. It's funny, it's got good action, and it does the thing that I'll say is like, has been lately the formula I really like, which is it's episodic, in that there's like a character of the episode that there's a conflict with, and you have to get past that conflict. They usually get past that conflict within the episode, so it can feel like just like, oh yeah, like villain of the week, but it always progresses the plot, and it always progresses the characters, and just striking that balance is so hard for most shows. And this did it out of the blue, or a show I did not expect that from. I wouldn't go into it going like, ooh, I've heard this and that about the shows. Like, I was just like, oh, let's watch it. I'm bored. And it was great. And it's great. Yeah. And if for nothing else, Bane is the best character in that show sometimes.
Good. I like that. So I did because you're talking about Harley Quinn, like, I did end up watching Birds of Prey the other day. What was your take on that? Did you watch it? Have you actually watched it?
Yeah. I'm a fan of that movie for not the traditional reasons. I think that Harley Quinn is great in that movie, how she's portrayed, much better than Suicide Squad. Yes. I think that the weakest part of that show is actually the rest of the Birds of Prey. I think that that movie should have been called like Harley Quinn 2 or something. Yes. It is about her at the end of the day, and the parts that she shows up are the best parts. I think the other, like, if you come at it from that perspective, it works super well. I think that they let me down a little bit on the character development for the rest of the Birds of Prey. I thought that they were written a bit shallow. I think that they're really the two people in that show that stand out are like Ian McGregor's character. I can watch all day. I think actually one of the best bad guys in the DC universe. He was great. The scene where Harley Quinn goes into the police office, the police department, and with all the colors and stuff, boom, great action scene. It's just an amazing action scene. Like it generally makes me happy when I watch that scene. I'll rewatch it on YouTube sometimes just to make myself happy.
Oh yeah,
it's so good.
If you've not watched Birds of Prey, go on YouTube and just look up Birds of Prey police station or whatever it was. It's just so fun. The thing is, I didn't know about that scene, so when it came up, I was like, oh, that's actually funny and well put together. So the reason is that I did have low expectations for Birds of Prey.
Same.
And I did start watching it once, and I was like, oh, garbage. And then I finally was in the mood for it a couple of weeks ago. And I actually liked it. So that's why I'm very open to anything Harley Quinn right now. Not that I wasn't before, but like it's even more so now. I think I need to find a way to watch that. Especially if it's episodic. I like a good show that is episodic, that you can just if it's standalone sort of, that'd be great.
And Margot Robbie is pushing for the live action character to take on like a series like the animated one. She's actually she watched it and really liked it, and she's like pushing for it because the character has legs, man. That's the thing. It's like it's a character that I would have never thought had legs, and it definitely has legs.
To me it's a different angle from the Batman angle and the Joker angle. Like it's a very, in terms of live action movies, it's something it remains largely unexplored. Harley Quinn and her entire world.
Yes.
Which is why actually I think also a reason why I enjoy Birds of Prey, because I'm like, I actually know very little about her. Like it's explored in, was it Justice League? Was it
Yeah.
just no, not Justice
No,
League, sorry.
no, Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad. So
Yeah.
when you see a little bit of her origin story, a little bit,
Yep.
it's mentioned, it's talked about. I think it's shown. I think they've actually filmed a bunch of scenes with her and the Joker that didn't make the cut, but
Release the Ayer cut.
Yay, Ayer cut. So they need to give us some more on her, and I think she because she does a great portrayal of her. Like she looks good. She is literally mental, in her play. Actually, she's got that edge. So I want to see more.
So the show dives into her trauma a lot more.
Yeah,
that's what I really like about the show. It goes back to like why she kind of fell in love with the Joker and all stuff and how the Joker treats her. But also it's like, that's what the kind of, I think my last point on it is that this show does a better job of what the movie Joker tried to do, which is certainly like humanize the Joker and unfortunately like a somewhat odd way at times. So I know there's a lot of like that movie's been politicized to death and there's a lot of different views of that movie, so I won't go into that right now. But this animated show, it portrays a Joker in the light that you're not going to expect. Like it's very different how it portrays a Joker, because it starts off as like the classic Joker, and then by the end of the show, you're like, oh damn, and it actually leaves the Joker plot line somewhat open-ended for what would have been the third season, which at the time there was debate about it, and now they've confirmed the third season is coming, which I'm super excited about. And yeah, so check it out.
Is he ending up as a stay-at-home dad? So what's happening?
Watch the show. And you will find out. So
yeah. Do you want to go with your other one?
Oh yeah, and quickly touch. Yeah, totally. So the other one, once again, another show I had low expectations for. I think also there's something to like what expectations you have going into a show, right? Because Harley Quinn I had no expectations, not because I thought it was bad, just because I didn't care. This one, I generally thought, I think this might be bad, mainly because it's MODOK, which is right now trending, and like there's a lot of chatter about it. And it's for anybody who's not familiar with it, it's MODOK is a Marvel show that was released on Hulu. Why was it released on Hulu, JC? Do you ask? Well, I've got an answer for you, audience.
Thank you.
So this has happened. So to get into like nerdy Marvel behind the scenes stuff, there was the Marvel license was not fully controlled by Marvel Studios. There were other, it was being used by other studios within Disney. So the full creative control was not under Kevin Feige. That's how we got Daredevil, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, all those shows on Netflix.
Or the one that failed.
All the ones, although Daredevil, a lot of people still stick up for that one. So yeah, it is solid, and there's got a pretty amazing fight scene. And the Punisher, I've heard decent things about. But yeah, Iron Fist was a massive flop, objectively. So point being is that Netflix was creating shows. So like there's a studio within Marvel like working with Netflix to develop the shows. There's another studio within Marvel developing Hulu shows. Now those shows, there was 4 shows planned. There was this one, MODOK. There was Howard the Duck, which I'll come back to that. There was I think it's like Hit Monkey. And there's like a 4th one, which was like Tigra and somewhere else. I had never heard of those characters in Marvel. I was like, all right, fine. So they finally, Kevin Feige goes like, people, I got the clout. I'm going to just hoover up everything and it's all mine. Y'all need to stop playing in my sandbox. Off you go. But when that happened, the Hulu shows were in development and half of them got cut, right? So the ones that were cut were Howard the Duck and that other one, Tigra and somebody else. The Howard the Duck one, I actually am legitimately bummed because the showrunner for that was going to be Kevin Smith. And
no way, that would have been awesome.
If anybody's going to do Howard the Duck humor, it's Kevin Smith. It's like, and Howard the Duck just like, he's a character that has so much you could tell that would be right in that Rick and Morty type sphere. Whereas the movie didn't do him justice, as much as that is a cult classic. And I do actually want to go back and watch that movie again one day. But anyways, it got cut, and that was like, and the whole thing is like all the characters are all like anti-heroes, and they were going to come together as not the defenders, the offenders,
Yes.
which I'm like, oh, classic pun, Marvel.
Indeed.
So anyways, that part I wasn't as keen on, but I did want to watch Howard the Duck. Point being is that the ones that make the cut are Hitmonkey and MODOK.
MODOK, yeah.
Because they were too far in production, so they still had to release them. So I'm like, oh, this doesn't have the Kevin Feige stamp. I'm like, is it going to be good? Da da da, and it comes out, and it's voiced, but MODOK gets voiced by Patton Oswalt. If you know who MODOK is, I can't give you a whole origin story of MODOK. Go Google it. Go to Wikipedia. It's all there. But MODOK's a bad guy in the Marvel. It's another anti-hero sort of moment, right? The funny part is it has so many parallels with the Harley Quinn show, where it's like, it's about MODOK basically being a bad guy that has never had the big take over the world moment. He doesn't have Thanos power. He doesn't have he's not Galactus at all, right? So he has it's like lower level villain, and he's very aware of it and very self-conscious about it.
He's supposed to be a genius, but he's also a very, very stupid genius. That's he's put into, because I only watched episode 1 because at the time of this recording, episode 2 just dropped on Disney Plus for us in the UK, and so I've only watched the first one. But the first one was like, this guy's a genius, supposed to take over the world, but also he can't deal with day-to-day real life, as in normal life situation, like taking care of his wife, his kids. So I was like, it's actually quite funny to witness. He's supposed to be this badass, but it's not.
Yeah. And the thing about it is this is a thing that I really love, as opposed to grounding it in him being a villain, because you barely get to even get to see him do his villain thing before it instantly grounds it in his family. Yeah. It's a family comedy drama at the end of the day, because there's some moments that are like I've seen people on Twitter go I got teary twice watching MODOK, because the family piece, dude, there's some parts that are heartbreaking, dude, legit heartbreaking, in particular one with his daughter. You're just like, damn. But the way the writing is set up, it totally earns it, because the way he finds out about something, and I won't spoil it,
no spoilers, thank you.
He recognizes something about his daughter that he didn't know, and the mechanism for him to recognize that is something that was basically the point of the show. It was the conflict led to him developing a technology that helps him resolve the conflict. But as a kind of a side thing, it also makes him recognize something about his daughter he didn't know, and it doesn't get resolved. He doesn't take action. He just recognizes, and just it lets you sit with the sadness at the end of the episode, and it's very well done, dude. I'm very impressed. Yeah.
It's gonna have to be one of those let's reach for the tissue box.
It's not total tearjerker, but it's got moments that are genuinely sad.
All right, just so I know what episode is that, so I can get ready.
I think it's 3, I want to say.
Right. So
it establishes it early, if I'm honest. It establishes a dynamic with his wife, which shout out Latina, man. Finally get Latina representation in the Marvel universe, and not as any Latino stereotype. I was like, damn, she's a self-help guru that does stuff on YouTube and builds her brand and stuff. And anyways, there's a nice subplot with her, and I won't give away more because that would be very spoilery. But she's very interesting. The son is super not what you would expect in that character. Anyways, I can't get away too much. But point being is the show takes Rick and Morty type humor at times, and that's why I was when he started, I was it's getting released on Disney Plus. I was really? Because there's one part in the show.
It's on Star. It's on Star in Disney Plus. So it's got language, so it's not accessible for kids. It's actually the adult section. That sounds a bit off.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the adult section of
it's the one in the back of the video store with the curtain,
Yeah, that one. So it's that one.
There's one part that's very Rick and Morty.
There's one thing I like. Again, I've only watched episode 1, but the stylistics of it, the way it's drawn, is very reminiscent of MTV.
Well, it's claymation.
Claymation, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're old enough, MTV used to have the wrestling, the celebrity death match.
Dude, I'd forgotten about that. Yes, it's exactly celebrity deathmatch.
That's exactly that.
Better better movement now than they had back then. But very much in that vein. I'd totally forgot about that. Yeah. And funny enough, that type of humor at times as well. Kind of think of it.
There's a lot of it. There's like that. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I did. It took me a few minutes to get on the level because I wasn't expecting, and I didn't know anything about it. I went in blind, and I was like, first I was like, huh? And then it got good in that same episode.
And then based on that, now I'm kind of looking forward to the Hit Monkey one because I was listening to Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man Beyond, and he's talking about MODOK and about how like like those guys like they knew what they were doing with the animation stuff, but he gave a little spoiler on like Hit Monkey. He's like, but Hit Monkey, he's like, because I have no idea who that character is. He's like, there's parts of it that are straight out of Kill Bill. Like it's gonna be like that. Like the action scenes are done very stylistically. I'm like, oh, okay, I could be done. So these Hulu shows, I think, might have a little bit of legs because Hulu released like a live action show like 6 months ago. Was it Hellstrom? That just flopped, and that was part of like it's too far in development. Kevin Feige said, let it roll, and that show will die a quick death. I'm very sure.
We'll do it over at some point.
Yeah, no one liked it. So over to you, sir.
But you know what I like is every single recommendation we've gone with today, none of it is for kids.
I know, not quite on brand, but it's like that's what we're watching.
We're not on brand today. We just literally went with everything we've enjoyed. So it's again, if you're looking for stuff for your kids, this is not the episode. We'll come back with something else on another day. But so in that spirit, on that note, my last recommendation is Army of the Dead, which came out last week, some point very recently on Netflix, which is a Zack Snyder creation production, co-written, directed, and director of photographed, if I can say it that way. Thing. So it's pretty much a one-man show.
He did everything.
And I've read a bunch of interviews from the actors saying that he was awesome on shoot, like on location, because he was filming 10-12 hours a day, holding the camera literally. Some directors of photography, they just set it up and they got the assistant to do all the job. But like he was literally with the camera on his back in the heat of the desert and Vegas area, and he did it all, directed, made sure that it looked good. So I'm gonna try to tell you what it is, spoiler free, because you've not watched it, right?
I was about to say, unfortunately, peeps out there, I have not watched it yet, so this would be one that normally we would go into spoiler territory, but I actually legitimately do want to watch this movie. I'm very excited about it. But just a quick note on Zack Snyder, it seems like it's a running theme with him, like because in Justice League, that's one thing that like all the actors came out to defend him, not in partly his work, but also his character. Just like, no, he's a good guy. He's different to the directors. He actually cares about this stuff.
He's a nice human being, and that's that has to be highlighted because we're hearing so many stories back in the last few months, years. It's just like when somebody does something well, you gotta give them props as well, because it's not a given that everybody behaves nicely.
Correct.
Try to right, Army of the Dead. So it's a funny one. So it's a combination of two different styles, right? Two different genres: zombie movies and heist movies. So think about Ocean's 11 meets Walking Dead, and that's what Army of the Dead is.
That's a great setup. Yeah,
it's a great setup. So basically, without spoiling anything, starts off with that scene where there's this convoy that's carrying something. It's obviously an army convoy, and they're carrying something around the area of Vegas. They don't know what they're carrying. They don't know what it is. They crash.
Why do they crash, Tom?
We don't know. Something happens. I'm not gonna spoil. They crash because it has to be a story, man. Okay.
The moment that sets this whole story into play for me is still such the biggest face plant. Because actually, I will say I started watching the movie, I had to stop, and I just caught about that much, and I'm like, that is the funniest thing ever to set a whole an apocalypse into motion.
Let's put it this way. When I was watching and the crash happened, I was like, this is one of the best way to go. Not for well, for at least one of the two people involved. Anyway,
I think you said it very well. You kept it as clean as possible, but still going like, yep, that's it.
I was watching, I was like, no, yeah, no. Amazing. Anyway, again, not for kids. Yeah. So they crash. The thing they're carrying escapes and unleashes a zombie apocalypse, but located in Vegas. Yeah. So the entire city of Vegas is run. I've said, yeah, actually, it's actually run by zombies, but without spoiling it, you'll see why. So you move forward in the future, and the entire city of Vegas is now surrounded. It's blocked. Nobody can escape. You can go in if you want to go in. You can, but you gotta pay somebody to, slip you right in to do whatever you want to do. So that's the zombie part of the film. The other part of the film is the heist, which is now you introduce the character of one of the casino owner that says, "Look, in one of my vaults, which is still there, there's 200 mil. I want that money back." And it's at that moment he's talking to Drax, aka Dave Bautista.
Yeah,
who is a very good actor actually. It's quite weird not to see him like painted in blue. It's really weird, and with a beard, like that Eminem beard that he's wearing that looks fake, but it's there. So he's asking for Drax's help into getting his money back, and he's like, "Look, 200 million there. I give you, I think 50 million you get to keep if you come out of this alive. Yep. Gather a crew, let's go." And again, I don't want to spoil. They have to go in. There's a bunch of stuff happening. Will they go out? I don't know. I can't tell you. So that's the premises of the film, and it's very hard to talk about it without spoiling it for you. But let's set up. But before we start recording, at the end of it, I was like, "Yep."
I've watched it. So one thing I'd love to talk about is the initial montage. I have watched through there. Like basically,
the introduction, you mean?
Yeah, like that montage in the beginning, I thought was a very interesting way of setting up the movie.
So the whole thing with the zombies and like the slow motion, and you saw the fake Eiffel Tower dropping on top of a bunch of zombies. Yeah, okay, yeah. So that actually that reminded me of Zombieland. I think is the one. Is it Zombieland?
Yeah, Zombieland. Yeah. With Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson. Yeah. Surprisingly good movie. Yeah.
Awesome movie.
Didn't watch the second one though. Second one was any good?
Second one's all right. It's not the first one. The first one's just a beast of a movie. To me, the intro is the mix of Guardians of the Galaxy with Zombieland and a bit of what was the other movie that did that? Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
a little bit Shaun of the Dead. It had a bit of humor at the start of it, but then that goes away really quickly. That style goes away. Like he moves on from that, so it almost feels like he went, "I want you guys to think this is a comedy." It's not. It really is.
Because he does that classic Snyder thing which I enjoy it, but at times I feel it does get a little bit old. But he plays like Viva Las Vegas over like a very violent montage, and I feel it's just such a Snyder thing to do. I'm just like this like happy-go-lucky song. It's like everybody's getting slaughtered.
No,
I really enjoyed it that part actually.
So the entire film is it reminds me a lot of his Snyder Cut, which is there's a lot of things he could have cut out of the film, like because it runs for 2 hours and 35 or now 2 hours 45 something quite long.
I was surprised.
Ridiculous. But again with Snyder, there's a lot of fat around the bone. Like there's a lot of things you could have done. There was literally one scene. I've watched it once, and as I was watching one scene, I was like, this you could have cut. This you could cut. Like you don't need this. Like speed it up. You don't need that. So that's the one. There's two critics for me. There's two things that sort of took me out of the movie that are not, again, spoiler related. But like the fact that he was sometimes taking forever to go from A to B, which is very Snydery to do. A very Snydery thing to do, and it took me out again. I was like, God, stop talking. Like get to the point. Like we know we don't need this. And there's a couple discussion, like a couple interactions between characters. I'm like, this is not really natural. This is not how I would expect people to react and go, move on from. It's really weird. It's a couple of things like that. You'll see once you watch it. And the second thing, it's again, I keep going on talking about that, is the stylistics of it. Like he does that depth of field thing, which is like, but to a point where it's actually distracting. It's like, you've got the main character talking to somebody else, and the scene is set up that you've got literally just the face of the character who's talking that is non-blurred, so it's actually sharp. It's actually fine. The rest of it is just pushed to the extreme, where it's like, when you use that filter on Instagram where you want your background to be blurry, and like everything else around it, there's no depth to it. I'm like, please stop doing that. Please stop it. Because and the reason why I didn't like that is because it's set in Vegas. It's set in those places, like, and you've made an effort to recreate that destroyed version of Vegas. Like everything's falling apart. Like you've got a bunch of stuff happening in the background, but you just blurring that. Like all the special effects and everything that you've created, the world around it that you created, is sort of detached from what's happening on screen. It's just the weirdest thing. Because of him using that effect, using that I don't know, I'm not gonna say it's a lens, but like it's the blur effect is just too much. It just takes you out.
And you can tell it's an effect. So I made it all the way through and this is not a huge spoiler because everybody recognizes this is gonna happen. It's like the recruitment part where it's like he goes in the assemble the team part. Right. He assembles a whole team and they get together and they're all in the same place for the first time and they're talking. And you're right. And he leans into that blurring effect a lot in the scene. Yeah. And that scene is lit with a lot of light. So it makes the blurring effect very jarring, right? Because the light isn't like soft, right, at all. It's very, very, very light. Very bright. And so, there's a couple of things that stylistically, I was curious. I'm like, that's what I was curious. Like, obviously I want to finish the movie. It's like, I'm like, I wonder where he's going to take this. Cause I was like, why would he be doing this at this particular point? I didn't feel like it served a purpose. That's a good catch, dude.
I don't think it does, because and it's sort of a disservice to the film also, because there's a bunch of action scenes that are still using that effect. And I'm like, one of the fun thing to see in an action film is not only what's happening in the foreground, it's what's happening in the background as well. You see a bunch of other characters fighting, and it's like sometimes you concentrate on I was going to say Drax, but on Dave Bautista's character, and then something's happening in the background, but you can't see it. You don't know what's happening. And I don't know, man. It's over the top with that effect, and I think it feels like, when you're a student, like your college or whatever, and you've discovered how to use Final Cut or whatever. It's like, look at that cool effect I can do, and then you use it on every single shot. And it's like, we got it. You discovered vignette, whatever it's called. It's like, good for you. Just stop now. It doesn't help the story. It doesn't have the development of characters. Yeah.
So story-wise, one thing that I will say, the reason why I got excited over it when I started, I was generally bummed I had to stop it, is that, at least for me, I'm curious to take if you had the same impression. I only saw one trailer. I don't know if it was first, second, or third, but I saw one trailer. And in the trailer, what it made me think it was, and the way it was shot, because this trailer I feel was very deliberately did. I don't know if the next trailer undid it, but it made it feel like they were planning a heist. And then as they're executing the heist, they realize they're zombies. Whereas this is, everybody knows they're zombies. Let's still go do a heist. Like that's the part that for me got flipped going into it. That got me excited. I was like, oh, wait, this is not what I expected. Once again, expectations, right? I'm like, all right, it's going to be the classic, like, assemble the team, go in, and there's this surprise. Only the surprise happens to be zombies instead of something else. But like the flip was different. Whereas this, like, that's why that initial montage to me was interesting, because it took me from where I was in the trailer to tell me, like, no, this is totally different, and it built a world very quickly, very effectively.
Yeah, you're right, because I've seen the same trailer than you. I think it was sort of misleading in a way that it was like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to drop you into that zone, surprise. But it's not that. Actually, I forgot to mention one thing. There's not really spoiler in the spoiler world, but like the whole thing, the whole tension of the movie is not only that the zombies are there and you need to get the money out, is that they're about to nuke the entire place so they can kill all the zombies. Right? You've got 48 hours. Yes. Actually, less than that by the time they get set up, and like, you got 24 hours, so even less. Can't remember how much it is. Yeah. So you've got that stress of there's a nuke coming our way.
You're on the clock. Exactly.
You're on the clock. So that's something that is also not shown, I think, in the trailers, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the ones we've seen. and that sort of adds some spice to it.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's gonna get nuked real soon, Terminator style.
Yeah.
And I think that's mentioned in the film. I think there's one line that somebody's like, "Oh, who's like in Terminator? They're going to get nuked." Yes, like that. So it's interesting that there's a bunch of stuff that you were not seeing. Like I wasn't expecting that to happen. Actually, I'm quite happy that's the option they go for, like nuke entire place, because I'm like, in a bunch of zombie movies, like they're like, oh no, we have just nuke them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're not strong. Let's be honest here.
They're dumb. They're really dumb. Like, just actually spoil it, but you'll see stuff in there. It's quite cool.
But that's the part that I was looking forward to. Coming off the trailer, what I was looking forward to was like, oh, we got smart zombies. Not smart, but like more evolved zombies. Like zombies that they're fast, they're thinking about stuff that not thinking, but like at least organizing. That's what I got from the trailer, which is like, it's not your classic zombies. They're just like walking around half there. And it's like, just nuke the place and then you're done, right? That's where I thought like, oh, that's an interesting premise. But then what the first, I think it's like 15 minutes of the movie does, it's like, I think it gives you stake, and whether those stakes are paid off or not, I don't know. But like, it gives you stakes for those characters in that montage really quickly. Like I immediately felt for Dave Bautista's character very quickly in that movie, despite the fact that he doesn't really sit there and say like, well, I've lost this, and that. It's like he touches on it, but very briefly, because it allows you to move into that recruitment scene very effectively, because you know what's at stake for all of them from the get-go.
I love his reasons. They were super grounded and very real, and I love that, because usually it's like, it's your turn to save the world, like, no, he's like, he did some stuff. He's now working a crap job, and he just wants that cash money. In the end, exactly. I'm like, you know what? You don't need much more than that in the field sometimes.
And the part is like he got a Medal of Freedom, and just like, what have I got to show for it?
It's this,
and it's like, and it's like it's like you see that all the time in the military. You see that all the time with athletes. All the time is like they get little to show for it afterwards, a career where they abuse their body, and they weren't A-listers, and they sacrifice their body for very little afterwards at the end of the day.
And then big money comes, big money, a shot to get some big money comes across, and then it's like, I don't know what, I'm going to take it.
Possible meta commentary that apparently is extremely common with wrestlers.
Wrestlers.
They end up flipping burgers.
Let's see, it happens. If you're not an A-list athletes, like, and that's why they get paid a lot. The top of the top. And it's like, well, because it's super hard to get there. That's another discussion.
Not everybody comes to rock. Exactly.
But then my final thought about it is just that it's a good film. Almost punch my TV again. My two recommendations almost make me punch my TV, so I'm starting to get worried about my mental health. But no, it's just the ending. I was like, I'm not going to say anything. Again, the reviews and the critics, again, it depends on your expectations. It's not the best film of the year to me. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It could have been shorter. Again, there's a theme there, but that was to be expected. But I think it's a very solid film. It's very enjoyable, but just the ending, I was like, and we'll talk about it once you get to it.
Will do. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Actually, Fio's watching with me, so she's like joining in some of the nerd love right now. So we'll polish that one off. But with what I also heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it's a follow up or a prequel. They're already planning like a
prequel,
an animated prequel, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that should be coming out in the next couple of years. But that's being talked about.
Yeah. So it sounds like at least the world building, well, maybe the plot may have not delivered to expectations. It's like the world building was at least effective enough that it can spin off other things.
Oh, by the way, once you finish watching the movie, you'll be probably sucked into the entire theory of time loop in that film. So there's even Zack Snyder said, yes, maybe there's a time loop thing in there.
I saw that on Twitter.
It's mentioned in the film. Yeah, it's mentioned in the film by the actual characters. They're actually debating like halfway through the film, halfway through the heist. Is this a time loop thing? Like, I was stuck in a time loop, and not done too much research into it, but I would not be surprised if there's like a second layer to the film where it's like actually they are in the time.
Clever. Okay, all right. Give it up to my boy Zack Snyder.
All right, cool. I think that's it. We've got enough. It's a nice way to come back into it. A few recommendations. Right.
Keeping it tight, people. Trying to hit that hour mark for all listeners out there. We are listening to you. We heard your feedback. We want to try to get to an hour. Just we can waffle on sometimes, but we're trying.
It's only because we like what we're talking about. Right. Anyway, let's wrap this one up. We'll be back next week with another one. I think we'll be talking about Tenet, the Nolan movie. Which
speaking of time loops,
thinking about it, we're sticking to this in June. We'll do a bunch of stuff that is time related,
and there may or may not be a special guest coming to do something interesting. So look out for that, kids.
I'm very excited about that Tenet episode. I want to hear what other people think about this. Right. So,
spoiler: it ain't Sego.
It ain't Dave. We know other people, guys.
Yeah,
we have other friends. Right. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, please go and subscribe to all of our social media. Instagram, where we are now 1,400 people in there following us. We just crossed 500 on Twitter, so please go and follow us there as well. And still on Facebook, but doesn't matter. We're on LinkedIn. We love LinkedIn. And YouTube. YouTube is going up as well in terms of subscriptions. Thanks for everyone who's watching. So leave us a comment on Google. That helps. From some 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. That also helps. With yes. JC.
Yeah, and thanks to Tom for being a producer extraordinaire and making this happen.
Zack Snyder. Going on for too long, man. But please subscribe, please share, please like, please stay with us. We'll be back next week for another episode of Catching Up with the Nerds. Thank you, JC, for joining us.
Yeah. Check out Modoc. Bye.
Yes, check out Modoc. Anyway, goodbye, people. See you all next week.